All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're going to try to do something that sounds, well, a little bit impossible. We're going on a whirlwind tour of general science. So buckle up, this is going to be a rapid-fire masterclass. Let's jump right in. Yep, you heard that right. We are going to try and compress the absolute core concepts of biology, chemistry, and physics into one super fast-paced, high-impact explainer. Think of it as a sprint through all the fundamentals. So let's get going. So before we can even talk about what we know, we really have to understand how we know it. And all of that starts with the absolute foundation of any scientific question, the scientific method. Now, this isn't just some random list. It's a really powerful systematic way of thinking. You see something, you ask why, you form a testable prediction, that's your hypothesis, and then you design an experiment to see if you were on the right track. It's this awesome logical loop that's designed to strip away our biases and just get to the hard evidence. And to make sure that test is actually fair, scientists use these key terms. So let's say you're testing a new fertilizer. The independent variable is the one thing you're changing, the fertilizer itself. The dependent variable is what you measure, like plant height. And the control group, that's a bunch of plants that get no fertilizer at all, which gives you a baseline to compare against. To communicate their results, scientists all over the world need a common language. That's exactly what the SI system is. It doesn't matter if you're in Tokyo or Toronto, a meter is always a meter, and a kilogram is always a kilogram. This standardization is absolutely crucial for being able to check and build upon each other's work. Okay, now that we have our scientific toolkit ready to go, let's apply it to the study of life itself. We're jumping headfirst into biology, and we're going to start with the fundamental building block of every single living thing, the cell. So all life is made of cells, but they basically come in two main flavors. You've got your prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, which are pretty simple. Their DNA just kind of floats around inside. Then you have eukaryotic cells, and that's what makes up plants, animals, and you and me. They're way more complex. The big difference, the one you really got to remember, is that eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus to house and protect their DNA. A fantastic way to understand a eukaryotic cell is to picture it as a tiny, bustling city. The nucleus, that's City Hall, giving out all the orders. The mitochondria, that's the power plants, generating all the energy. Ribosomes are the little factories, building things. And the plasma membrane is like the city's security border. It's a great analogy because it shows how every single part has a vital, specific job to do. So how do things get across that city border? Well, there are two main ways. Passive transport is kind of like floating down a river. It doesn't take any energy at all. But active transport is the total opposite. It's like trying to paddle upstream, and it needs energy, which comes from a molecule called ATP to move things against the current. So for you to grow or for your body to heal a cut, your cells have to divide. That whole process is called mitosis, and it's like this carefully choreographed dance that takes one parent cell and creates two perfect identical daughter cells. It all happens in four main phases: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Ever wonder why you have your mother's eyes or your father's smile? Well, that's genetics. A gene is a piece of DNA that codes for a certain trait. An allele is just a specific version of that gene. Your genotype is the actual combination of alleles you carry, and your phenotype is the physical trait that we can actually see. Okay, so we've looked at the living cell, but what are all those little organelles and molecules actually made of? To answer that, we have to zoom in even further. So welcome to chemistry, the science of matter itself. Pretty much everything is made of atoms, and atoms themselves are made of three key little particles. In the center, in the nucleus, you have protons, which define what element it is. You also have neutrons, which add mass and keep things stable. And then buzzing all around the outside are the electrons, and they're the real key players when it comes to chemical reactions. You see, atoms just want to have a full outer shell of electrons, and they'll bond with other atoms to make that happen. In an ionic bond, one atom literally gives an electron away to another. But in a covalent bond, they're a bit more collaborative, and they share electrons instead. So transfer versus share, that's the big difference. Chemical reactions are really just atoms rearranging themselves into new things. We can group them into a few main types. For instance, a synthesis reaction combines things, like A plus B makes AB. A decomposition reaction is the total opposite. It breaks AB back down into A and B. There are others, but these two really show that basic idea of building things up and breaking them down. Two really important classes of chemicals that you see everywhere are acids and bases. The easiest way to tell them apart is with something called the pH scale. Anything below a 7 is an acid, like lemon juice. Anything above a 7 is a base, like baking soda. And pure water? That's perfectly neutral, sitting right at a 7. All right, we've covered life, and we've covered the matter that life is made of. So now we're going to talk about the fundamental rules that govern how all that matter moves and interacts. It's time for physics, the study of energy and motion. Newton's laws are really the bedrock of how things move in our everyday world. First, an object in motion stays in motion. Second, and this is the famous one, force equals mass times acceleration. And third, for every single action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. These three simple rules explain so much about how the world around us works. Now this is one of the most fundamental laws in all of science. The total amount of energy in the universe is constant. You can't just make more of it, and you can't get rid of it. All you can do is change its form. Think about a ball at the top of a hill. It has potential energy, which then transforms into the kinetic energy of motion as it starts to roll down. Check out this simple formula. It reveals this incredibly powerful relationship that applies to all waves, everything from sound waves to light waves. A wave's speed is simply its frequency, that's how often it cycles, multiplied by its wavelength, which is the distance between its peaks. It's just a really elegant and universal rule. Okay, that was a whirlwind tour, right? We have just seen the foundations of all three major branches of science. So now, let's see what stuck. It is time for a rapid-fire pop quiz. You ready? All right, first up, biology. Think back to that cellular transport idea. Remember that water always moves to try and balance out concentrations? So if a plant cell shrinks when you put it in salt water, what does that tell you about the solution it's in? The answer is C, hypertonic. Hyper just means more. The saltwater solution has a higher concentration of salt than the cell does. So water rushes out of the cell to try and balance things out, and that's what causes the cell to shrink. Okay, on to chemistry. This one is all about reading a chemical formula correctly. Look really closely at the little subscript numbers, both inside and outside the parentheses for aluminum sulfate. How many oxygen atoms are there? And the answer is C, 12. All you do is take the subscript 4 that's attached to the oxygen inside the parentheses, and you multiply it by the 3 on the outside. 4 times 3 gives you 12 oxygen atoms. Simple as that. Last question, coming from physics. This is a direct application of Newton's most famous law. You've got the force, you got the mass. What's the acceleration? The answer here is B, 2 meters per second squared. Remember F equals ma? Well, to find the acceleration, we just rearrange that formula to A equals F divided by m. So 20 newtons divided by 10 kilograms gives us 2. And that is our masterclass. We have covered an incredible amount of ground. But you gotta remember, science isn't just a big collection of facts. It's a way of thinking. It's a tool for asking questions. So the real takeaway here is to stay curious. So, what question will you ask next?